Well, welcome to Gallery 5 Art Talk, day number 2. And our first artist up is Tracy Loring. And take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Steve. Hello. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you. My name's Tracy Loring, as Steve said. I am a mixed media painter. I have been painting for many, many, many years. And the thing that I love most about painting is color. So one of the things that I'm completely infatuated with, that you will see as a theme throughout all of my art, is color and texture. So you may hear the phrase, artists will say from time to time, that they enjoy pushing paint around. And I have this innate drive to feel the textural, tactile need to feel paint moving on a surface and watching it, and in particular color and how they melt and mush together. So all of my years of painting, everything is sort of coalesced into this idea of texture and color and how it represents the world. My process is very much about, I don't know what I'm doing when I start. So it's driven by that desire to push paint, to watch it flow. I'm a mom. I run my own business, so I'm a coach, I'm a facilitator, and that means that I'm trying to fit all the stuff in my days. So I'll often find myself with 15 minutes here, 15 minutes there to work on something. And to the chagrin of my husband, often that's on our dining room table. So what that means is usually around 6, 7 o'clock at night, dinner's over, everyone's sort of settling in for the night, and I've got those few minutes to just make a mess. So that's how my pieces start. They start with a mess, and often I'm driven by the desire to explore a specific color. Sometimes I'm like, I'm just feeling orange today, and I just need to watch orange move. Sometimes it is the desire to feel, literally push the paint. Sometimes I have a new medium that I want to try. So my underlayers almost always start with something fluid. So watercolor, acrylic ink, those are my two go-tos. I was talking to Deb Carpenter here a little while ago, and I really do enjoy oil. I love the texture of it, but we were talking about how long it takes to dry. So I work in layers, and so I really love water-based mediums, in particular acrylics, because they dry so quickly and I can get on to the next thing. So often when I start a piece, it is me making a mess and then seeing what emerges. Sometimes it becomes an abstract. Sometimes I see something and I go with it and it becomes something. So the 3 pieces that I have in the show that I'll talk about today, they're all figures. Often my work will take the form of flowers. I do love flowers. I think I have a love-hate relationship with them in terms of painting them. So I keep doing it because I want to conquer it. So I think there's that. I really love trees. And in particular, what I've learned about myself over time is what drives me to create these types of shapes isn't so much the love of the end result, the flower, the tree, although I love them. It's the desire to make the motion with my body that results in those sorts of shapes. So I love doing this shape that always turns into a tree. And when I make flowers, I'm kind of scrubbing at the surface and they turn into flowers. Figures are interesting for me because they show up often hidden in the layers. And I take photographs of my work along the way, and I will always go back at the end of a finished piece and see that figure was there from the very beginning. So often it is wanting to come out from the start. So I'll just kind of walk you through a couple of these pieces. This one here I call the fitting. And this started out as a challenge with an art group that was meant to inspire us to create a piece based on mixed media. And so I went to Arlene's Art Supply. They have a great selection of handmade and really interesting papers. And I found this really cool paper. And my initial thought with this was I was going to make a piece and I was going to use it as a fence. I was really inspired by the round shapes, and I was going to cut it up and tear it and create these really neat textures. So that's kind of how it started, and it started horizontal. And then as I was making my marks around it and making a mess as I normally do, I rotate my piece as I'm working, just so I can look at things from different angles, and sometimes things emerge. Often I find I paint upside down and I don't realize it until I turn it around. So I turned it around, and the way I had made this mark here, I was like, oh, that's a figure, that's somebody's head. And I was like, wow, okay. So whenever I see a figure in my work, I just ask myself, is there a story here that wants to be told? Does this figure want to come out, or is it just something that ends up in the background? So for this one, because this shape was so strong, I wanted to go with it. And so it just sort of evolved. These were shapes that were in the background. And as I was putting it together, I was reminded of those moments that you see when folks are buying their wedding dress. So I got married many, many years ago. But there's something really special about the moment that you're there and what's going through your head when you are trying on a garment that has so much symbolism, and what that feels like and all the things that are going through your head. And often there's people there that are supporting you through it. There's someone there that's measuring the garment for you. And so there was just this really interesting scene, and that's what I went with, and that's why it's called The Fitting. Some of the things I really love about this, I really thought about how best to present it. There's so much texture in this piece, and sometimes I feel like that gets kind of hidden underneath the glass, but it's on paper. So it's very, very soft, and sort of the light kind of creates this ethereal sort of mood. So that's the story behind The Fitting. So this is primarily acrylic. There's some watercolor in here underneath, and collage primarily in the figure itself there. So that's The Fitting. This one here I call The Calm Before the Storm. And this started out as I got some new masking fluid. And I'd never tried this particular brand before. And so I wanted to try it with some watercolor. And I just took a big brush and I dipped it in the masking fluid, and I made a mark. That mark is her. And I didn't realize it, of course, at the time, but I just made a mark, and then I thought, oh, okay, let me play around with the background, and I made all these other marks with watercolor, and there's some acrylic ink in there, and just sort of played with it. And then I took a big eraser and I erased the masking fluid, and I looked at it and saw a figure. And so I went with it. And as I was working on this figure, I noticed she had a bit of a bump right there. And I thought, oh, she's pregnant. So the idea here, and she's got her hand, it's hard to see, but she's kind of got her hand on her tummy, and it's the calm before the storm. I'm thinking back to when I was pregnant and what that's like. So it's kind of like she's hanging out under the water, and kind of, that moment that you have, or those moments before you know something incredible and transformative is coming. So you're just sort of holding on to the calm before the storm. So that's this piece here, primarily watercolor. There's a little bit of acrylic ink in here, and her face, I did some detail with some colored pencil. So that's her. On paper as well. I love to work on paper. One, because it's easy to store, I can stack them, and two, I can have them out in lots of places. And I love the way these fluid mediums flow on paper. It's different than on other surfaces, so I really enjoy that. I have a third piece over here.
Want me to hand it to you, or do you want to take it down and go there?
Yeah, if we can, that's great. We can walk over. I'll be quick. I'm probably getting
Take your
close to my
No,
time.
you're good. Excuse me.
So this I like to call Ride with the Wind. And this is all acrylic ink, and again on paper. So this started out as a piece where I was just playing with color and mark making. And as I was going through and adding layers, this face appeared. And when I go back and I look at the photographs of the works in progress, it was the eye that showed up first. And the eye that you see here, that was exactly what was in the painting. So really what I did is I just built the rest of the face around it. And as I was doing it, I was like, oh, it's a horse. So Ride Like the Wind, this is probably partially inspired by My Little Pony. If you're familiar with that, my daughter, I have a 6-year-old, she was super into My Little Pony for a long time. And they all have this big floofy hair. And so that's kind of what was going on here, was just this big floofiness. And then this, and probably my favorite part about this piece is just the luminosity here that comes from using acrylic ink. They're transparent, and I just love it. I love the light in it and how it just sort of brings something extra special and ethereal to it. So that's Ride Like the Wind. So all of these pieces evolved, emerged intuitively through the process. Lots of fun with fluid medium, and thanks for hearing me out. Any questions about any of it? Anything?
Yeah, the orange ink you use in the bottom, is that layered on, or is that the orange ink on a white background?
That's the orange ink on a white background. And there's a little bit of mark making underneath where some of the marks that I was using with a brush kind of made some marks, but the orange is layered over that. And so that luminosity comes from the white paper that's underneath. Yeah, great question.
And you apply that with a brush?
A brush, my
squeegee
fingers.
Yep.
I use my fingers a lot. You'll see, like here in particular, I like to come back with an opaque ink. They're a little bit thicker, and I like to use my fingers to make different sorts of marks, and so you'll see my little fingerprints in there. But yeah, and I'll move the piece around because it's fluid. It'll move, and I'll use water a lot to get the pigments to disperse. And so there's lots of different ways to get it. But yeah, the glow is that luscious, transparent ink over the white background. Yeah, great question. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy.
And thank you, Gallery 5, for having me. Oh, question, Peggy? Yeah.
Yeah, because I've watched your art, and a lot of it is, it's like gardens and flowers.
Yeah.
How do you take your inspiration for your pieces?
Oh, great question. I did a solo show last year. I did a residency at Arlene's Artist Materials last year. And that culminated in this body of work. And what I realized at the end of creating all these works is that I was painting things from my childhood. So because I paint intuitively, I don't start a painting with something in mind. It just emerges. And what I found was that all these things were coming from things that I saw. And when I finished this piece, when I was growing up across the street from our house, I've never painted a horse before. But across the street from our house was an open field, and there were wild horses there. And I remember going across the street with my mom when I was a kid with carrots, and we would go feed the horses. So what I've noticed over time is these things, they just come out of me. So I guess to answer the question, it's really my experiences, the stuff that's in here somewhere that just comes out of my body when I make these marks. And especially with my florals, what I recognized was the shapes that I make are often sort of poppy shaped. I grew up in California, and the state flower for California is the poppy. And one of my favorite things in life, my dad was a truck driver. We would drive together on the weekends. He loved to drive. And we would drive all over California. I grew up in Northern California. And all along the side of the road were these bright orange poppies. So somehow that shape got embedded in my brain and in my body. And so when I make these marks, it just sort of comes out that way. So it was kind of fun to see that, that where that stuff is coming from. And it was putting together that body of work gave me the opportunity to really reflect over all the pieces and see the themes and the similarities. So yeah, great question. Thank you. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you. Awesome.
All right. Thanks, Tracy.
Thank you all. Thank you.